Thank you all for being here tonight. It's really quite an overwhelming treat to have us all sitting together. What I'm here to do tonight is actually talk to you about the most positive, joyful, overwhelming record-making experience of my life. It's been so extraordinary and empowering, and really, I've made a record that I am so proud of, and I never thought that I would do that kind of work. So I'm really here to report on something incredibly positive and empowering about writing this record and writing these songs and then making this record with these quite astonishing women. From the moment I met Catherine, I think the seed somewhere within me was embedded that I wanted to work with her creatively, and I was just so delighted when she agreed to make this record, and it's really been an extraordinary process. And
thank you.
I'm looking forward to discussing these songs with you. And to her right is Angeli Perrin-Paraja, who's co-written on the record, and Nadine Yomi, who's co-written on the record, and Angela Blacklaw, who's co-written on the record, and Barbara, who is not been a co-writer, but has been so present for me on this journey and has contributed a lot of the spoken word content to the recording process. And I thank you for everything. Liberty's Mother is my artist project name, and that literal part of my identity and the artist project all really came about rather unexpectedly in 2018. I had written this song for Liberty called I Can Love You From Here, which I wrote very soon after she died and was born. And then I was asked to sing it at the service there on the right, which took place in the crypt underneath the Houses of Parliament for a service for the great and good in the baby loss community as part of the all-party parliamentary group for baby loss. And well, one thing rather led to another, and I ended up making a record for the first time meaningfully in my life, and we wrote and recorded an EP with an extraordinarily generous team of people. Shortly after I became a professor, FLIS directors Vic Bain and Dr. Potocznik gave evidence to the Women Equalities Committee inquiry into misogyny in music. And at one of these sessions, they were asked, is there any evidence that women write songs about different things than men? And they approached me for some research on the matter. Of course, there's a huge research gap, but I had my master's community to rely on, and I felt very confident that, yes, they do. Different genders write songs about different things. Different genders write about the same things differently. And I started to become really interested then in this systemic sexism being embedded not just into the A&R process, but like I say, the creative process itself. And I started thinking, well, how could I explore that through my songwriting? How could I find a way to do that? And that is what ultimately led me to the Peaceful Warrior EP. Unwritten song. So to start with, we're going to talk about Song 1, Unwritten Song, which I wrote with somebody who isn't here with us tonight, but some of you may remember, a colleague of ours called Katerina Gunnerhall. Our analogy for this song was, we said, okay, how can we make ourselves as sad as we could possibly be? And she and I discussed what would it be like if we could never make music again, never write songs again. And that's what Unwritten Song is about, as an analogy for what I've just talked about.
Yeah, and I think this track was really important because it really set the tone of how we were going to approach the production. And primarily the way I've approached this entire record is about the psychology of the production space and making the artist and songwriter feel safe and comfortable. That's how you get your best performances. That was very much at the forefront of the way that we worked from there on in, wasn't it? It was about, okay, how do we get the best out of the performance?
At the point in the writing, I wasn't yet kind of thinking about practice research, but by the time I got to putting this song cycle together, a couple of essays by Zadie Smith were really speaking to me, and they do relate somewhat to this song. So now I'd like to play you the first song from the song cycle, which is called Unwritten Song. I'm the one who's living this, I think I know it best, and it's not us. Godsplaining is written after the FLIS conference, when I'd really started to think about exploring something that spoke about my observations and also explored the process. And I started to understand that this was research practice and very much leaning into the work of Soraya Chemley, Rage Becomes Her, with respect to anger. So there are lyrics in this that refer to the work that I'm talking about here. For example, you'll hear the lyrics here about if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Now, you have a song which talks about this, but my reference here is to those two pop tracks where women come on and say, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. And they are singing lyrics that have been written for them by men and put in their mouths. Men who have not experienced the considerable life experience of the women who are singing those songs in actual fact. That's what this song is about. And this term that I've created here is actually speaking directly about my experiences on the first Liberty's Mother record of everywhere I went, whether that was national newspaper interviews or about to go live to the nation on the biggest lunchtime show in the UK, talking about the death of my child, having men say to me, "It's very difficult for you to talk about this, isn't it?" And me thinking, is it? I mean, I think I'll be the fucking judge of that. Not 3 male record producers the minute before I go live to 10 million people. And so you can see I started to leaning into getting quite annoyed about this, as well as thinking about what songs should be about when women write records, to sell them to women about our lived experience. And that's everything that I'm deliberately leaning into with the writing craft here. And I think you gave this really helpful comment when we were talking about there's a hook in it. Tell them, tell them, tell them. And I was speaking to Catherine about how, like, them and they in songcraft is, well, don't say that because you sound angry and accusatory. And Catherine said, but that's so clever, because what you're saying is you're reversing the it's not you, it's me. You're saying it's not me, it's you, which is exactly what I am saying in this record.
The A&R man, the judge, the boyfriend, teacher, the obstetrician, TV producer, the psychotherapist, the boss, husband,
media owners, finance,
doctor. For me, I mean, thank you for the invitation to be part of the project. And I think for me, just thinking about the Godsplaining and thinking about what I was going to add to that had me digging into my own lived experience. And the invitation to do that was actually quite uncomfortable, because it wasn't just them out there, it's actually in my home, it's actually my family, it's actually the people that I see and I'm with every day, and having to dig into that and then reflect on what that really means for me, but then kind of having that voice as part of a collective of women was really special.
It came full circle for me, because on the first Liberty's Mother record, sharing with the baby loss community and feeling so humbled by hearing about other people's experiences in the baby loss community, giving me such immense perspective and drawing strength from that, kind of took me full circle on that grief process. And so when we got all of your voice notes, I felt like it was the same as the baby loss project, like you was just with your notes on this record, that you were saying the same. You were saying, I hear you, I see you, I've experienced it, and I felt so humbled by your experiences.
Yeah, and that felt special. Because as I was recording some of these voice notes, I was looking at my husband, who just so happened to be in the room with me at times, and it was that visceral, it was that energy that I felt, but it was also really special at the same time to know that this record and being part of it and just reflecting on it is going to make a difference.
We've got a song title which is not in the song, so, according to a lot of people, no one will ever find or hear this. Well, let's see. Then they won't have to get annoyed about it, will they? Just want to credit Hannah Rose Platt, who isn't with us this evening, is also a writer on this record, and her voice is on this. And I think now we should listen to Godsplaining. Not me.
I was never taught to love like this. It cost me to be brave to manifest what I missed.
We're going to move on to Cycle Breaker. I was starting to want to talk about liberty in this record, this is a turning point. I thought, this is another Liberty's Mother record. After I make Godsplaining, I was like, okay, I'm making another Liberty's Mother record. I'm just going to accept that. And so I need to start talking about motherhood. And I need to start talking about breaking cycles of, as a woman, how I can lead my life and make my work and raise my children, and how Liberty is still my daughter, and how can I talk about her, and how can I talk about feminism and sexism, and I'm thinking about her. And I thought, okay, well, Angie's somebody that I can go to, and we can kind of fully investigate the songcraft and start to look at internalised sexism in that and write it deliberately exploring that.
We were just, I think, talking about the things that we carry, the expectations, the roles, the stereotypes, what that does to us, how it's probably not serving us. Motherhood is a great one for that. That's an endless chat that we can go on, which we don't need to right now. Hopefully some of that is clear within the writing. But we did also have a talk about the generational cycle, so that's also really relevant to Cycle Breaker. The internalised historical feminist or non-rather feminist stories that we have within us, the roles we are told to take, the fact that both of us challenge that very much in the spaces we try to occupy. So we wrote a slightly pissed off, angry song, really.
This is Cycle Breaker, written by Angela and I. That was on a card when I arrived at Angie's house.
Yep.
She gave no fucks, not even one.
And she lived happily ever after.
And it inspired the whole song. Yeah.
But Mum, I think they've got too many toys.
We're going to talk now about when we really started, in this process to look at internalised sexism in the songcraft process. And I was very privileged to write with my colleague and friend Angela Blacklaw. Angela was really important in this because I respect Angela utterly with respect to craft and creativity. And I feel completely safe with her to explore these, explore my lived experience. Also because this, I knew, was going to be a very controversial piece of work, and it is a controversial piece of work in multiple respects. And in fact, on the Middle Eight, we hear a teenage Liberty speak. Just to say that I got a 14-year-old who lives very locally to me to play the character of Liberty. She was the first young woman I'd looked at actually and thought, oh, Liberty would be that age now. When I saw Saskia riding her bike one day in where we live, and I think Saskia who plays this character is probably very like Liberty would be. She's neurodivergent. She's incredibly smart. She's a very vocal pain in the ass. She's just wonderful.
They don't get to grab my body. They don't keep me locked inside. They don't get to spoil my future. They don't get to fuck my life. They don't get to call me bitch or let the tires down on my bike. They don't get to share my photo. They don't get to drop the mic.
I remember Sophie coming to say, I want to write a hard-hitting piece. She said, about the end of the world and how men fucked it up. Yes, so I'm in, obviously. It's like you had me at a hello there. And, you know, I felt Liberty very present in the room. We just started to imagine what she would see now in terms of overconsumption and the depletion of natural resources, and plastic, and aggression and damage and mass destruction. And to be honest, if anything, over the last 12 months, I think it's got worse. So whether it's bows and arrows or video games or nuclear games or government policies or the rise of fascism, we're seeing so many toys that are about greed and territory and power and violence, yes, and domination. I'll say just one thing and then pass it over, which is about the atonality of the piece. It is not in A key. That is quite deliberate. That was a very key part of our writing process, to make sure that it did not settle. It was not comfortable. It did not resolve. in any way, because it's the end of the world. This is no time to feel comfortable.
Okay, so this is Toys. Thank you.
Change, I'm a peaceful warrior. I sign my name.
Enter Hannah Rose Platt and Nadine Yomi, who are and were the dream team. There was a lot of pressure on this song because I had written the 6th song, and this was the one really had to pull it all together. It's the title of the album. It's about war. It's about going to war. It's about what's happening in the world, and it's really about my driving force behind making this record. And this song is my declaration of war upon creative inequality. And this is in the kind of hero's journey of the song cycle, the kind of showdown, denouement. And it really comes together beautifully in this record, which is the song which will be the other single.
I felt so honoured to be in this writing team with both those legends. One thing I remember we talked about is how war, as in violence, is actually one of the most uncreative solutions to problems. And I personally am really upset to always see this cycle, again cycles, to be like, oh, one country attacks the other and then the other attacks the other. And it's just like, shouldn't we know by now that this is really uncreative? It's the opposite of creative. It's destroying anything that was created, then it takes ages to create it again. And so we talked about how maybe as women, particularly, how we might have a different view on the value of life. And you said something so powerful that I'll never forget. You said, it's harder to take a life when you've given birth to one. And that was what fired me up in this process, and it was a delight. I really enjoyed it.
I don't think I have too much to add to what I've already said about the idea. It was just about really encapsulating the anger and retaining all the imperfection that anger has.
This is what we do. We write fiction with the truth. I invade and never turn back. I always win.
Okay, so this is the last song, which I actually wrote on my own. I started writing it, wrote a draft of it around the time that Afghanistan changed power. And there was so much on the news about that, and I was thinking so much about feminism and about the women there, and again about liberty and how she would see the world. And this song personifies love like a chemical weapon. So again, Love the Ultimate Weapon is the title. It's not in the song, and so the voice that you hear speaking is love. And I wanted to put it at the end of this record. I remain an ultimately very positive, hopeful person, whatever process I'm looking at. And I really feel very strongly that empowering women in all aspects of life, but in my world, in creativity and songwriting, is a massive force for good. And that whenever it is empowered, that we make massive change, massive positive change. And that's what this song is about. I love your love for this song. I think it might be my favourite thing about this record.
Yeah, it was a real gateway for me, this song, because I think it was about kind of acknowledging that I was going to meet Sophie and her vulnerability in the process. And this song, I think I just kind of wanted to be very myself and fully present for Sophie in the making of the record. And to do that, I needed to show her what music does to me, and in this case it was to become a crumbling mess of tears within about 4 minutes of you singing it to me. So I think it really set the tone, didn't it, for our relationship in making the record.
It did. If it wasn't the first day, it was the second day. I played this kind of all the way through in one go, and I looked at you, and your eyes were full of tears, and I thought, this is going to be everything I want it to be. This incredible woman is meeting me with the vulnerability, and she gets everything that I'm saying and everything that I wanted to do, and that was a real turning point. I feel this record is going to be everything I want it to be. This process is going to be what I want it to be, and it was.
I mean, I guess probably people by now are hearing that, well, maybe you're not hearing, if I've done my job correctly, that my voice is scattered across the record in a supporting role to Sophie. And I think that was really important to kind of feel that I was there not to kind of overpower or overshadow in any way, but just to support the voice, I think, because that was an area that I think you felt, I think it's okay to say, not hugely confident in. You know, you identify as a songwriter first and foremost. So we were teaming up in that regard too, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think that's a metaphor for your role in this record. You've just been that huge supportive force.
But hopefully, as I say, completely unobtrusive. If I've done my job properly. Hopefully.
Yeah.
I think this one's emotional though, not because it's sad in itself, it's because it actually is very uplifting.
Yeah.
And it's hopeful. And I think I found that incredibly moving.
Yeah, because it's really what I believe. You know, I really believe that love, that was the experience of the first Liberty's Mother record, is that, you know, I was saying that my daughter is not here, but that love that I have for her is still this massive, powerful force. And it can just grow bigger. And I do believe that love is this incredibly powerful force, hopefully, as the record says, stronger than anything, and it can enter in anywhere. Okay, so this is Love, the Ultimate Weapon.